This video is sponsored by Crimson Manifesto, Knuckles OX, Jelpy, and Baba Snake. Before this part really starts off, it's worth clearing up our current timeline, since that's been a bit of confusion for a lot of viewers since around the flashback part in 1.5. And that's totally fair, since I've been rather sloppy with that stuff to the point of already introducing potential mistakes and contradictions, and it's probably worth going over current year and age format, important dates so far, and actual age for major characters right now. So, our most major ages of intrigue are 734, the year Goku's birth was retconned to be when he was taken from a baby, to a 3-year-old when he lands on Earth, and age 737 by Minus. With what we have established so far, that would mean parts 1, 1.5, and 2 for sure take place within age 737, with the flashback to Bardock's past likely being 20 or so years in the past, so let's call that a throwback to age 717. The rest of Bardock's journey taking place from parts 3 through 6 occur over the remaining months of age 737, and even ends up reaching into 738, since Goku's 4th birthday ends up taking place through Bardock's absence, and then his 5th is not long after his return. That very night is the arrival of Muezli, Granolah, and Monito, the former two of whom they spend the remainder of 738 with, through the events of part 7 and part 7.5, which takes them pretty much into age 739, where a pretty quick Dragon Ball hunt is started and finished right before some pretty intensive training with the dedicated masters is meant to begin in part 8, round 1. Now, even before we get to the character ages, I've made a mistake and forgotten that before the 21st tournament, Budokais were only held every 5 years apart. Shout out to viewer Jappo Jr. for pointing this out. So, I had assumed we were hurtling towards the 21st World Tournament a lot faster than we actually were, since it's meant to take place on May 7th of 750, meaning the 20th tourney, which is the one King Choppa is most commonly speculated to have entered and won before he returned for the 22nd, and the one I said they are training for and heading to at the end of last part, would have taken place on May 7th, 745, and here, Goku should be 7, since 5 years before his 21st tourney attempt, where Muten Roshi taught him to count and he corrected his age to the number he didn't know about, 12, having originally counted from 11 to 13 to 14. This is a pretty easy fix with a single retcon. It just changed the time the boys train under Roshi, Tao, and Mr. Satan to a year and about 8 months, rather than only around 8 months as a vague copy of the original arc. This would put Goku at somewhere around 6 going on 7 or 7 going on 8, letting him somewhat match up with Goten during his first competition during the Buu Saga, which isn't really of note, I just think it's super cute. And instead of the 20th, this will be the 19th. Taking place on May 7th of 740. Since in the end, I don't think anybody really cares all too much about which number tournament we're actually fighting in so much as we get a tournament. There would probably still be some extra unaccounted for time I'm not considering, but we can hand wave that away for the sake of maybe weather forecasts don't look good for the original day, so we're gonna move it up. That said, that means our other character ages should be Raditz at 11, if we're keeping up him being around the same age as Vegeta and Broly, to shift it to be a tiny bit closer to Goku at only 4 years apart. And I really like Granolah being pretty close to him, so like a month or so younger, just barely the little brother in their rivalry. Bardock is said by fan pages and wikis to be born in 712, so around 27 or 29 at the time of his original death in 737, which I'm pretty fine with since that makes him around 30 to 33 in 740. I'd like to say Gine is born in 714 or 715, so she'd be 28, and I want Muezli a year older than her, so she's 29. Grandpa Gohan is somewhere upwards of 80 currently. Bulma's younger than Raditz at 10 going on 11, and Yamcha and Tien are around that exact same age. There's some other characters like members of the Breeze family, the Pilaf gang, and even Tao, Roshi, and original Mr. Satan, but we'll just go with their whatever ages are appropriate, or what might be listed on other fan pages or wikis, since that's already been precedented. So, however long of a bout of intensive training passes, and when it comes time for a test of these results, there is no better place than the Tenkaichi Budokai, and with the changes so far, the entrants to the tournament are greater in both number and power, with many more remarkable fighters than would have been present in canon, including representatives of multiple notable martial arts schools, and even a past champion here to compete. So needless to say, the beginning roster is truly packed, and ready to go off with only a tiny little spark, so much so that it's decided by the management that they will be simply foolish not to charge admission and display the preliminaries over the course of the weekend. This is where you see our heroes meeting up during their sign-ups and last-minute preparations, having kept an especially sharp eye out for their babies, and thanks to Muezli's being keen enough to discern them even amongst the massive crowd, it doesn't take long for Grandpa Gohan, Gine, and her to reunite with them. And pretty much as expected, it's in the midst of a loud conversation led by Raditz, who is blatantly chatting up the Crane School before the prelims even begin, eyeing up Tao, Tien, and Chaozu, and actually asking where his moss-headed rival is, only to have the group of assassins snicker and turn their noses up at him in some haughty gesture, as if they know better than he does. Thankfully, the inhabitants of Paozu ease the tension through Gine both scolding Raditz to be polite and making him flinch at hearing his mom's voice after so long, before she just as quickly tugs him into a bone-crushing hug, while Muezli approaches the hooded boy who'd been standing behind Raditz and the members of the Satan Dojo the entire time, mocking them, grinning wide and opening her arms expectantly. and asking for boys too grown up to hug his mom anymore. As if on cue, Granolah can't help but glump his mom, feeling himself in his mama's boy nature, and earning Raditz's ire for making fun of him, only for Granolah to shoot back that it's the hedgehog's fault for not learning how to sense ki in all this time, making Raditz fume even harder. Though now that the two are clinging onto their moms, their bravado has been sufficiently dampened despite the sparks flying between them. It is here that the members of the Turtle School arrive, with Goku making his presence known, excitedly greeting everyone, and introduces them to Yamcha, since everyone's met Roshi already. Gine and Muezli just as quickly bolt over to the younger lad and scoop him up into a big group hug, this getting Granolah and Raditz to smile, having missed him as well, with the pair making a silent agreement to settle things in the tourney as planned, and so focus on completing introductions for their own fellow students and teachers, clearly taking some pride in their martial arts schools. Though this does remind Granolah of something, with the Cerulean condescendingly asking Raditz if he remembered to enter the tourney under his Earth name, like he and Goku had, with the same confirming he did with a duh, though both boys freely admit by now their schoolmates and teachers know their secret anyway. Still no reason to go freaking out the locals and possibly calling more attention to themselves than they need. For a time, the group continued to mingle, whilst other friends like the Briefs, Pelock Gang, and Ox Family, now with a ready to compete and show off to his wife and daughter Ox King, show up to join them, since both Roshi and Grandpa Gohan are pretty keenly interested in the teachers Bardock picked out for the boys. They make sure to properly greet and meet the other teachers, mostly interested in the likes of Tao Pai Pai, whom shows the master of a rival school more reverence than one would assume. Though Mr. Satan is a bit of an inquired taste at times, Gohan himself, having partially helped raise the boy, can tell the man has a good heart and cares a lot about Raditz at the very least. And all who've heard the tale of Bruce Chun are pretty interested by the arrival of the audacious Devil Man, though the mystique of the fighter is quickly lost on just about everyone aside from Kakarot and Mark due to the superhero's eccentric costume. Despite the weirdness and wackiness, Gine is extremely happy to see all this chaos, having missed it, even though the quiet on Mount Paozu has been great for hunting. By now, she was really not even all that mad that Bardock suddenly had to miss out. However, it's as she has this thought that her instincts tip her off to a presence, like a sixth sense, as she feels like she recognizes a distinct footstep, even in this massive crowd. And above the call of the tournament officials, that participating fighters should make their way to the distinct rings for A, B, C, and D block, whilst premium ticketed spectators have been provided seating inside the prelim building's rafters. There's no mistaking it. That liar Bardock is here, and she quickly begins scanning to find her visual proof of it. Though when she sees a masked man finally part his way subtly through the crowds, sporting a distinct hairstyle, she feels her heart stop, and just as quickly realizes she was the only one to notice him, only being snapped out of her stupor by Muezli, when she asks again if she wants to sneak into the rafters with her, only for Dr. Briefs to return with more premium tickets for everyone else. But he and everyone else show a lingering concern when she seems visibly uneasy. Gine assures everyone she's fine, though in her mind, she's struggling to make sense of what she just saw. There was no way it could have been, but was that really Mr. Cognac just now? Or maybe it really was Bardock, and if so, why would he lie, come to the tourney in secret, and pretend to be him? Regardless of the mysteries to be solved, the question of who will be the strongest under the heavens requires an answer, and so the prelims begin with the trademark of no-name fighter characters who roll up against our conveniently bracketed heroes, being fairly easily defeated without much effort on the part of their opponent, with some extremely skilled and experienced fighters like the Masked Man and Mercenary Tao not even required to actively engage their opponent, rather than simply scaring them away with a slightest exposure with their killing intent and raw ambition, as they manifest noticeable pressure that any sane fighter wants to avoid. These showings are quick, though impressive, but the journey to a bracket of 8 means inevitably some of our new heroes find themselves matched up against the family members of their fellow schoolmates, as Raditz defeats Tien to advance and Granolah Yamcha, while Goku ends up defeating Mark Satan, and the mysterious Masked Man, fighting under the name Bryce Liu, winds up defeating his last opponent with relative admiration, taking on King Choppa, the former odds-on favorite before the tournament filled up with so many ringers, though notably, the Masked Man takes special care in still not physically touching, and thus not trouncing his opponent, and even actively ends up trying to teach him after he displays his talent, whilst trying to strike him, as well as praise for going untouched by his opponents up till this point. That is, until the masked fighter decides to defeat him while also somewhat forcefully making him aware of ki, by reaching out and touching his forehead with his own immense ki, before subsequently using that to push him out of the ring with a small but explosively intense showing of true power. Thus, their match ends with mutual respect. However, as Bardock knew it would, this first real showing has put all eyes on Bryce Liu, as now Muezli can see what Gine meant, though even with her ability to see a person's vitals, she doesn't recognize the person as Bardock, thus understanding why it seemed like Gine saw a ghost earlier, and only increasing Gine's worry when this is relayed to her. Whilst down below, Granolah makes his way over to Goku and Raditz, asking them about the same thing, as he's pretty sure that's he means Bardock. But Raditz boasts that's idiotic, as their mom said he bailed on her, remember? While Goku cites that his hair's totally different, and Papa doesn't look like a cat. The Cerulean groans and lets Raditz reveal that the man is wearing a mask, while citing to support his conspiracy theory that no one's looked at Bardock's vitals more than him during training, and they seem almost identical. But Raditz just says that sounds more creepy than credible. Overhearing this, Bardock slinks back off to get out of view, debut, producing a little bottle of sake he prepared for himself to maintain a light buzz, or at least what he considered a light buzz, considering this was some kind of industrial alcohol used to clean big machineries at Capscorp he snagged. He figures if he's half poisoned by booze, it'll throw people off his scent both figuratively and literally, as an excuse to drink on the job technically, though one fighter pretty instantly lets him know that he's on to him, that of former two-time champion Spike the Devilman, whom upon defeating his opponent to enter the top 8 signals out Bryce Liu, as he's well aware of who he truly is, despite his amazing disguise, and this time he promises to do away with the villain behind the mask. With this declaration getting the crowd hyped up with the prospect of a possible champion-level heroic grudge match. The top 8 are about to be announced to the rest of the world, and spectators are given time to grab concessions and move to the main arena, as these 8 outstanding fighters are Aimu, Son Gojo, Ox King, Son Goku, Mr. Satan, Spike the Devilman, Tao Pai Pai, and Bryce Liu, whom shall form the pairs that face off for the next 4 matches, beginning with the 2 young prodigy fighters helping represent their schools of Satan Castle and the Crane School, Aimu and Gojo. Even before it begins, it is clear to both the adopted brotherly rivals and those who know them that this match is likely to go very different from their prior spars we've seen glimpses of, as while their respective pride is still as strong as ever, they've both learned some lessons that have helped them shore up their previous glaring weaknesses. Granolah no longer fears close quarters combat, having even developed techniques and combos to make up for his previous failings, such as his machine gun series of attacks, allowing him to turn his jabs and kicks into quick fire explosions of power, spreading it out in a more quantity over quality strategy that encourages the opponent to stay out of their range, and in a perfect position for sniping with a setup move. Raditz meanwhile has put his natural show-off nature and devious mind to use, leading to all kinds of seemingly crazy yet still effective moves in the vein of Goku's crazy monkey style, like his new great special rolling kick, which turns him to a spinning top of doom capable of batting away ki blasts and closing in on opponents by sucking them into a vortex of strong blows. But even this can't cancel out Granolah's use of his eye to target vitals for critical hits, and though Raditz seems to have only increased his raw power and confidence during his time under the roof of Satan Castle, that very confidence had led him to become bolder than ever before, not only seeing him blatantly endure and withstand some of Granolah's most precise and devastating attacks, but also try to flex a small gap between them in physical prowess in an attempt to leave Granolah bewildered by an army of wild-haired bullies dashing around him as after images, while beginning a high-speed rush without risk of retaliation, making sure Granolah remembers his roots on this planet by forcing him to play John Kimpo, or by using his slightly larger size to try and pummel Granolah down like he always did. When Muezli and Gine seem worried for Granolah, Tien and Chaozu assure them that this is only a fraction of his technique, signaling the counterattack, as he finally decides to get serious and projects his ki outward in a blast. However, long accustomed to this, Raditz merely jumps to dodge and responds with a volley of his own, more than happy to break the silent agreement not to shock the human crowd too bad if his opponent already is. Though as he does, he's thrown off by Granolah's blast hitting the ground and ricocheting off into the air at a sharp angle he has to dodge again to avoid, the distraction being more than enough of an opening for Granolah to fire a second ki blast which bounces off the first for a trick shot, using twice the force to come right back at Raditz from his blind spot for a nasty blow of payback that knocks him out of the air for a bit. This eventually caused the 2 young fighters to ferociously have the world's most dangerous game of tennis, as they continuously volley Granolah's new bouncy blast between one another, until there is simply too much built up force, and the 2 wind up blown back, and almost open the turn with a double ring out, though both are able to recover and throw themselves back into another bout, where this process is almost repeated, though this time with a slight change on Granolah's part, as while seeing Raditz come plummeting down, cringing in pain and covered in soot, the Cerulean boy, able to think like and knowing that technically Big Brother can take it, chooses to keep the pressure on, smacking his hands together in a makeshift gun to fire off his own Super Dodon Ray, which seems to strike center mass with less than deadly force, thanks to the green-haired boy purposely avoiding any vital organs, though that's not to say he'll stop there to let Raditz make a comeback and continue on the tourney. And so wanting a decisive non-lethal victory, the Mosshead decides to snag one of Tien's moves, attempting to meet the prone Saiyan at the bottom of his fall with a volleyball fist to knock him out of the ring, though instead, he's met with Raditz's reveal of the Satan Castle's strongest technique, stage presence, as he's developed acting skills so convincing he's inadvertently learned to suppress his ki to appear more damaged than he really is. And so as Raditz drops from the air, and in turn drops his act, he counters at the last second by planting his own hands, burnt black from suddenly catching the Dodon Ray, onto Granolah's helpfully placed hammer fist, so in the next moment he can drive both his feet into Granolah's face for a dynamite kick, strong enough to send him flying for a decisive ring out. The moment is quick and violent, but still unmistakable. This time, the element of surprise and Raditz's still greater physical prowess has decided the match between rivals to shift the score in the Saiyan's favor, with Granolah striking the ground in irritation as he realizes realizes this, whilst Raditz spins around at high speeds to clean the soot and dirt he'd gotten covered in off himself. Goofon with gusto at the crowd cheers for him, even if it's under the alias of Son Gojo, whilst the announcer declares his victory and tries to get things back on track for match number 2, Spike versus Mr. Satan. While everything is set up for the next match, and the self-proclaimed master martial artist has gotten stronger through becoming the teacher of Raditz, it's also safe to say meeting him and Bardock, and the latter saving him from Tao, who he'd still be sweating his chance of possibly facing again, I think Mr. Satan would find it most wise to make an excuse of having a terrible stomachache before forfeiting the match entirely, rather that than taking on a two-time world champ who's already giving him a bad feeling. Dissatisfied by the cowardice, Devilman makes a snide remark that such a pathetic fighter should not dare bear the name Satan, but both mark from the crowd with the others, and to the competitors' waiting area, Raditz take great offense to this, showing a shared and genuine admiration for their teacher. As such, the monkey-tailed ruffian loudly declares he'll crush this guy for dissing his master. So now the next round ain't just about showing up Bardock by beating one of his old enemies, it's personal. All the same, we now move directly on to match number 3, Ox King versus Goku. Of course, the Ox King is very thankful to the entire Bardock clan, and thus is also extra respectful towards Goku because of all he and everyone did to bring Enin back. But in reflecting on that thanks, he thinks back to what Bardock had asked of him when they passed one another in the prelims, and he happened to recognize him once again, thanks to their shared unmistakable fatherly aura. Don't go easy on him because he's young. Make him break his limits if you can. Otherwise, the kid won't have any fun. That's how you can repay me. And so, after the two members of the Turtle School bow to each other in respect, the Ox King unleashed his full mastered power, his greater understanding of the natural energy inside him, and the techniques of the Turtle School fueling his now completed Ox style, as far faster than anything his size should be able to move. He clears the distance between himself and Goku, and tries to drive a technique-hardened fist the size of the boy's entire body towards him at blistering speeds, threatening to tear him out of the ring with wind pressure alone before he can be crushed. And in the face of this seemingly unavoidable hurdle, Goku cheers thankful the Ox King really is taking him seriously, even if he is a little kid. And then, the entire ring shakes and cracks under the force of the big man's attack, whilst little Goku puts his entire body and tail into the effort of holding it back, Chiaotzu growling out full power himself in an imitation of Master Roshi and his dad, as he swells himself up with more air than ki, attempting to use pure muscle to throw the king's hand off, only to be nearly crushed again by a sequential axe kick, though by the time it lands with enough force to crack the arena tile again, Goku has already leveraged his tiny slice to grab onto the back of the king's leg, and swinging himself up behind him when he retracts it, a move both Raditz and Granolah roar in pride for him pulling off, as it gives a clean path for a strike to the back of the head. However, all his punches and kicks are blocked masterfully, as the king turns and uses his hand deftly, blocking even the craziest of crazy monkey blows with the sheer size of his hand, and even displaying himself an original practitioner of John Kenpo, having after all been Grandpa Gohan's test dummy for the game turned fighting style. Thus, the king is leaving Goku no choice but to literally use his head, as he rears his entire body back in preparation for a seeming final attack, and gets Chi-Chi's father to laugh loudly and with gusto at the audacity of challenging an ox to a headbutting competition, accepting the challenge, and mirroring the little monkey boy, before swinging his own skull forward to thud loudly off of Goku's, to the extent the relatively inexperienced fighters watching like Gine and Muezli can't help but shudder and cry for Goku's poor head, while most regular spectators can't help but wince and cringe at the sound of bone on bone, with this action thankfully shielding them a tad from the blast of air caused by the clash. Though despite all the odds being against such an event happening, Ox King is the one who stumbles back, as Gine, like a true Saiyan woman, takes immense pride in the toughness of her baby boy, that hard head of his, and seeing his opponent's body left wide open, while in the days of his own scrambled brains, the youngest son of Bardock still sees fit to recklessly leap at the king, and kick him from the ring by boosting his own speed with a bursting Kamehameha in the air, this being enough to send the Goliath tumbling over the edge, while Goku just barely catches himself, with the task obviously being much more winding and challenging than he expected it to be, though still fun. As a result, he is quick to thank the Ox King excited, while helping him up afterward, causing the ruler of Fire Mountain to get choked up with elation at fulfilling his vow. And thus, the final match of the round rolls around in the midst of true sportsmanship and brotherhood, as once the ring is clear, the mysterious Bryce Liu and world's most dangerous man Tao Pai Pai step up to face off with one another. Of course, Tao's unwitting humbling at the hands of Bardock has fundamentally changed him, and in no way is that made more clear than here, as he shows his opponent far more respect than he had when they met in that dive bar, even revealing his own seeing past Bardock's disguise, and thanking the man for what he'd helped him to learn. And now he can express that thanks by doing more than training Granolah. He can do so by showing him the fruits of his effort, such as a truly perfected Dodonpa, and even a strike using concepts from Granolah's critical attacks, and a full unbridled killing intent infused attack from Tao that off-puts those in the crowd able to sense it like senior members of the Turtle School. And this last trick does earn Tao a scolding by the announcer, as he pontificates that any lethal attacks will result in an immediate DQ. However, without missing a beat, Bryce Liu verbally absolves Tao of the consequences should his technique succeed, offering up his own life for the sake of the assassin's pride, as Tao activates the true ferocity of the crane dance and tries to blitz Bardock with a finger pistol, fired with enough power as to cause a shockwave behind the targeted pierces. Though while this is impressive, Bardock still has a job to do, and so he meets meets this technique with a simple finger of his own, before stepping into the assassin's guard to fold him over with the body blow, defeating him by knockout to spare him the embarrassment of ring out, as Tao would put it, though he presumed being spared at all would take him off again, much less losing, thus bringing the quarterfinal round to a close. With the crowd riding the wave of all this excitement, Bryce Lou to his chagrin is asked to remain on stage, along with 4 other contestants who are called out, 3 of whom will continue on the tournament as the top 4, with the last spot being the earlier eliminated Granolah, as inquiring minds want to hear short interviews from the likes of former champion Spike, the young prodigy Son Goku, Son Gojo, and Amu, and so why wouldn't everyone be curious about the Masked Warrior? Of course, people go crazy when the 2 fan-favorite monkey-tailed boys are revealed to be brothers, and Bulma even bristles a bit noticing some young ladies in the crowd swooning over the rivalry between Granolah and Raditz, when it's more clearly shown on stage for all of them. Also, unsurprisingly, Devilman like Raditz is a natural showman, and so banter as well with the announcer, hyping up the finals to get the crowd buzzing, thus leaving Bardock to bring down the mood, when his answers are all short, terse, and a slight bit slurred as well as altered by his mask to keep his identity hidden. When questioned on where he's from and where he trained, his muscle memory that claimed the lineage of Jackie Chun backfires on him, when Raditz narrows his eyes, and accusingly calls this a lie, stating with some pride his dad is the only son of Jackie Chun he knows of, forcing Bardock to roll with it, as he can see his family and friends in the crowd narrow their eyes at him as well. Sighing, the Saiyan subsequently unravels his tail to show it off as not just a fuzzy belt, while claiming Bruce Chun is his older brother, seeing some members of the crowd and announcer erupt once again in shock, having apparently heard his legend, while Raditz and Kakarot seem more than just shocked with their eyes popping out of their heads. The likes of Granolah glares at Bryce Lou even harder, and looks to Gine and Grandpa Gohan along with Muezli, silently demanding to know if this is true, only for the Saiyan woman to honestly admit that she isn't really all too sure herself. However, this interrogation is promptly cut short by the call of the next round to stay on schedule, forcing everyone to clear the ring and leave Goku and Bryce to their match, seeing the younger Saiyan respectfully thank his uncle for fighting him, while Bardock mumbles a terse, whatever brat, doing his best to channel his own dad to keep up this facade. With these as the stakes, Bardock takes this match extremely seriously, and while Goku is too to an extent, his dad isn't exactly happy. Even in this situation, the kid is more interested in having a good time and trying to meet who he thinks is a long-lost family member, as Kakarot even tries to warm up slowly and feel out his opponent's fighting style, like this is some low-stakes sparring match, and since Bardock is purposely tweaking it to not seem like his own fighting style, that's becoming an issue rather quickly, putting Bardock on a bit of a clock to finish this up and get this lesson taught, before the illusion is broken for the deceptively sharp Goku, as if he's too slow, the kid is sure to figure him out, and so, seeing no better alternative, he brute forces it, capitalizing on Goku's drop guard, as he resorts to the crazy monkey technique again, in his smaller size, while trying to evade Bardock, though just because Raditz couldn't catch his tail doesn't mean Bardock can either, as behind the guides of Bryce Lou, the ex-Frieza Force soldier informs the boy he better start training this thing if he's gonna wave it around, while he subsequently begins to swing Goku around by the tail, even slamming him once or twice, as he struggles and even bites Bardock hard enough to draw blood. Sadly, Bardock should have taken his own advice to heart, as misjudging his own strength, he accidentally ends up ripping the tail off completely and sending Goku flying out of the ring in a painful daze. Thankfully, his mother is still in the crowd to catch him, though as she does, Bardock does his best to avoid both her and Muezli's gaze, while going to wait for the finals back in the competitors area, knowing full well that both are likely going to kill him for that, even though the kid's young enough that he'll grow back. Note to self, when this is over, find a new planet to escape to. While at the same time, the announcer says the final match of the semifinals can now begin, seeing Son Gojo and Spike the Devilman take the stage. For his part, Raditz hasn't forgotten what Spike said, even during the chaos of his little brother's match, while Spike has honed in on the fact that this must be one of the children of Bruce Chun, so he sees no real need to hold back against him either. Thus, as soon as the signal is given, the two engage in a fierce battle of speed and flying superiority, thanks to their natural attunement to ki projection and demonic wings respectively, while Raditz's new Satan style is put to a true test, as Spike is able to block the dynamite punch, kick, and even master Satan's patented dynamic megaton combo, since Spike also boasts the devious use of his tail and wings as extra limbs during his own attacks to overwhelm Raditz's guard, thus negating any chances of Raditz overwhelming this opponent with his hands, and causing him to curse the Devilman for living up to Bardock's stories, missing the sweat-dropping and light cringing motion Bryce Lou makes while watching the battle just at the entrance of the waiting area. Taking a cue from Granolah, Raditz backs off for some room, relenting to reveal another secret killer technique he'd invented just to win this tournament, even if a bit early. He then places his hands on the ground while curling up, and projects his ki from his feet as if in order to fly, while never actually allowing himself to do so, causing him to begin spinning at high speed. This spin dash maneuver thankfully cushioned and made possible by his long wild hair, as at such speeds they may as well be steel quills, allowing the eldest son of Bardock to zip forward as a lethal rolling razor, quick enough to surprise Spike and land a significant blow on him that drives him back towards the ring edge, forcing the Devilman to hunker down as Raditz repeats the attack twice more, and then again and again, homing in on the demonic fighter each time he is knocked away by the force of his own impact in an attempt to brute force and bump Spike off. However, before he can finish this maneuver, the devil flashes his eyes with power, as he deftly repels repels Raditz's last attack, saving Spike, blowing the younger fighter back, and leaving him open for a true finishing move. One Bryce Lou seemingly uncharacteristically cries out urgently for the foolish boy to dodge, but alas, it is too late, as Raditz is easily struck head-on by the dreaded Devil Might Beam. But that's where we'll be leaving this story off for right now. And that'll close out round 2 of part 8. I got really good feedback from my friends the Storybuster, Pickled Dill, and Rune Scribble on this script, and I really agree with a lot of their thoughts. Number one of those being make sure the Raditz and Granolah fight got much more time than I originally had slated for, since those are kind of the main rivals of the story right now, and there's not actual much detail that has been in their actual, scraps in the past. And the second thing this accomplishes is making the core of this arc a bit stronger, to let the last round be all about Raditz not only taking on the strongest guy Bardock's faced on Earth, but also against Bardock himself, even if it's under the guise of someone else. Cause while this is meant to echo a really recognizable story arc of the 21st tournament, this is also meant to be kind of standing on its own. If I didn't have to edit all this and the timeline at the beginning, I would have really liked to have also given some extra detail to Goku versus Bryce Lou and Bryce Lou versus Tao especially, but in the end there really wasn't all too much I could have added to those fights in my opinion that would have made them any more impactful. So in the true end, no regrets, and we just gotta look forward to the hype that will be round 3, as well as take some solace in the knowledge this isn't the only tourney we'll get, much less the only opportunity for side characters to shine. Of course, I owe shoutouts to both Mr. Negative and Valerius Vibe for remaining the pillars of this story's visuals, but we also gotta give one to our special supporters of the day. Those being Robert Arstegard, Jacob Whitker, Kaiser09, Rap and Anime Keiki, and 4Lifer. The names of these supporters and a bunch of other ones should be scrolling across the screen right now. And of course, all the support, appreciation, and encouragement from these people cannot be understated because it just makes all this stuff possible. So if you want to join their ranks, get your name on the screen, and help the channel out, consider becoming a member or joining up on Patreon. You can also support the channel for 100% free by just doing the regular silly YouTube stuff like liking, commenting, and subscribing. But with all that said, that'll be my time, so as always, take care of yourselves and the world around you. Remember to go beyond plus ultra, and I'll see you guys next time.